I know some folks had asked for the recording ahead of time. So for those watching in the future, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Normally, I'd like to do a little bit of a roundtable to get to know everyone, but we've got a fair amount of people here. So if you'd like to introduce yourself via the chat, feel free. Drop in your name, your LinkedIn profile, or anything like that. Share the other folks what you got going on. People that want to keep your cameras on, I love it. People who have them off, if you'd like to turn them on, that's great. But no worries either way. I think we all know Zoom etiquette at this point, so I won't go into too much detail. Let's get started. So I appreciate everybody here. The topic of the day is scrappy but strategic practical tools for innovating in uncertain times. So why don't we dive in? Just let's get started by talking about why we're here, and then I'll share a little bit about myself, and then we'll get to the topic at hand. So I think that this, the idea of we have to do more with less is something that resonated with a lot of people when we started talking about this event. It seems like it's the status quo of people, especially in the innovation space, having to, always come up with their own resources. You have to fight for every dollar you work with. And so it always feels like we're having to do more with less. And then when you add in situations like we have today with market uncertainties related to, tariffs and trade, related to interest rates and the Fed, related to inflation, consumer spending, all that stuff, people that are in the innovation space start to go from here to starting to be in this kind of situation, right? We're starting to feel like the world's on fire, not sure what to do. And so my hope today is to take you through some techniques and tools that I've used in the past to help companies learn how to innovate, break through disruptive and uncertain situations, and become successful even in uncertain markets. So what we'll cover today, we'll talk about the uncertainty challenge that people are dealing with. We'll go through my framework, the 0-point mindset, for how people can break away, cut out the noise and distractions, and really focus on how to innovate strategically. We'll talk about 3 tactical tools, some practical tools to do that. And then we'll get you started on your next steps to innovation success. So before we get into it, a quick intro on myself. I know we got a lot of new folks here. I'd love the chance to chat with each of you directly, but in this kind of scenario, I got to do a mass introduction with everybody. So Jake Sherman here, president of 0-Point Strategy. This is an agency that I started after spending 10 years helping everyone from startups to Fortune 500s learn what it takes to innovate, and particularly connect the dots from insights to innovation. When we're coming up with new ideas, we're coming up with whether it's just developing our growth strategy or creating new products, new services, new marketing campaigns, new process efficiencies. When we think about all the things related to innovation, we want to make sure that we're using data and insights to inform those decision-making. And that's my specialty. That's what I love doing. It's what I studied when I got my MBA at Kellogg, and it's what I focused on when I co-authored the book, Risk-Free Innovation, 10 Ways to Manage Uncertainty a few years ago. And that's really the framework that goes into a lot of my teaching and my client work, et cetera. And I'm also going to go ahead and and I know we had a couple people who had mentioned to me they weren't able to stay till the end of the meeting, or they couldn't, make it through the end. So I'm just going to go ahead and post my, whoops, this is the meeting room chat. I want to do it in the regular chat. I'm going to go ahead and post my, there it is, my call link. If anyone wants to set up a call before, after, during this, you say, I've had enough, I want to meet this guy, click that link and we can get something set up. But why don't we dive in right now and get started? If you've got questions, please throw them in the chat. I've got a couple screens here, doing my best to keep track of it, but we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So let's talk about uncertainty, right? There's a lot of it right now. We're dealing with it from everything from trade to, inflation, issues with interest rates. AI is disrupting industries left and right. Consumers are pulling back their spending. And everybody that I'm talking to is dealing with this, all the way from big companies that are afraid to make big bets and investments because they don't know where the world is going to be in a few months, to small companies. I talked with one company, they develop products for B2B sales, and they have ingredients that they import. They want to sell, they want to grow their businesses, but they're feeling like they can't make commitments for big contracts because they don't know what the pricing is going to look like in a few months. And so they're struggling with this idea of, how do I innovate? How do I grow when I don't know where the world is going to be in a few months, right? And especially in the innovation space, this is something that can be a real problem, because when we think about innovation, it's often viewed as a longer term, higher risk strategic effort, right? You come up with an idea, love this idea, okay, well, now we got to research it. We have to build it. We have to get prototypes together. We have to test it. That's taking a few months. And then, okay, now we know we're going to build, but now we have to market it. We have to come up with our distribution system. We have to train our salespeople. Okay, we got that figured out. All right, now let's go and launch this thing. All right, it's been what, 6, 8 months, a year. We finally got it out there. Now we have to wait another 6 months for this to even break even because of all the resources and time we spent on the front end. And so when we think about uncertain environments, not being able to predict the future, it tends to have a lot of companies freezing up. And innovation budgets are often one of the first to be cut because companies are afraid of the risk involved with this. So my goal here is to help companies bridge the gap, because freezing isn't a strategy, right? We can't do strategic work or agile meet the market where it is today. We have to do both. We have to find a way to combine these two. And that's what I really wanted to talk to everyone about today. It's what I hope you can take some pieces from this and bring it to your own organizations. And the way that I like to talk about it is within the framework of what I call the 0-point mindset. All right. So the 0-point mindset is something that empowers innovation in any market environment. Okay. So when we think about the 0 point, the way that I like to think about it, there are some terms in quantum physics and mechanics that are way above my pay grade in terms of the scientific definition of the 0 point. But the way that I like to think about it is, what is the most core basic starting point that we can get to as an organization so that we can find true growth in any way we can, right? Because we're going to talk about innovation. And when we talk about innovation, a lot of times we think about disrupting industries, disrupting markets, but companies don't always think about disrupting themselves. And they're not always open to the idea of true change the way that we might like to be. And so the 0-point mindset helps us center and focus on who we want to be, how we want to innovate. And then when we get hit with challenges from the market and uncertainties, it helps us adapt and change and do the right thing. So the way that I define it is a singular moment of clarity where we're stripping away biases, habits, and outdated assumptions. It's the foundation for bold strategy, disruptive innovation, and sustainable growth. All right. So when we think about this tactically in an organization, the way that we help companies do it is through this flywheel. There's 5 stages. I'll go through them now, and then we'll dive into each one in more detail. And I think these are really critical tools for helping you adapt innovation into a culture within the organization. It helps procedurally and process-wise get people together on the same page about it. It really just affects the entire organization in a positive way. So when we think about the first step here is deconstructing assumptions, right? Who we are. We have a vision, we have a strategy for the company, but there's a lot of ways that we might think we've always done it this way. There's a lot of things that we do that are rinse and repeat. They're things that it's always, habits and formations that we build that are holding us back in a lot of ways from true innovation. And it keeps us from looking at objective data that we're seeing from customers or from the market and making decisions that could put us in the right direction, but because of some of these assumptions, they're holding us back. And we'll talk about this in a bit more detail on how you can think about that in different ways. Second, we looked at ourselves. Now we have to look out in the marketplace. We have to unlock deep customer insights, right? So we have to talk to people. We have to learn from our customers, from our consumers, from our end users, what some of their biggest problems, issues, and needs are, and what's the real job to be done, right? For those of us who are fans of the Clayton Christensen model for innovation, what's the job to be done? Why are we being hired by the customer with our products? And how do we address it? And this is where a lot of times we might see that we're really providing a Band-Aid to a solution, where really there's a more holistic innovation that we can be providing to really help people along the way. Once we have that, those insights, we can then reframe the problem and then ideate, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to use creative problem solving as the framework for innovation. Because, when we come up with ideas without doing that research ahead of time, it brings so much inherent risk because we don't know what people care about. And if we're not solving problems for people, then they're not going to be interested in our solutions. So it has to be a connection there. And this is one of the ways that's most powerful for companies, especially in uncertain times, because uncertainty means problems, and problems mean an area of opportunity for solutions. And that's where innovation comes to play. When we come up with our ideas, the next step is to test small, learn quickly, right? We have to get out there and execute. We can't sit on the fence. We can't freeze. We can't wait till the storm is over. We have to measure, adapt, scale small pilots. And we'll talk a bit about how to do that today. And then lastly, we have to commit to reinvention. And this is often the hardest part for companies to get their heads around, because a lot of people want to talk about innovation. They want to say, you know, we're an innovative company, we care about it. But then when push comes to shove and opportunities come around for real reinvention, all of a sudden it's, oh, well, we don't do that, or, oh, that's not who we are. A commitment to reinvention and a commitment to changing and adaptability makes uncertain environments an advantage for you, because you have it in your muscle memory, your systems, to be able to build and explore. So we'll dive into each one of these in particular. Again, if folks have questions or want clarifications, we'll have plenty of time at the end, or feel free to drop something in the chat. So when we talk about deconstructing assumptions, I like to pull from COVID. It was obviously a massive time for disruption. The ultimate thing I want you to take away from this is that we don't need a global pandemic to innovate, right? We don't need to have these massive pulls from the market telling us we can't do this, or we have to do this to innovate. But this is a great example of when companies were forced to do it and how they found success, right? So deconstructing assumptions about what is our business model and how do we interact with customers, right? We saw, you know, Chipotle was a great example. They saw digital sales skyrocket when they introduced their no touch, no wait lanes in their restaurants. We saw Walmart do exceptionally well when they started to invest in e-commerce. These are things that, while the pandemic forced them into this situation, these were needs at the time that they addressed quickly and agilely, and that is why they were able to find so much success. The same thing goes for rapid product innovations. You know, we think about, I don't know if folks heard about these stories about, you know, whiskey distilleries were switching from alcohol to hand sanitizer to help people during COVID, or even Ferrari had a ventilator that they had built in 5 weeks. And when you really think about the transformative difference in your products and your processes and the things that go into doing these types of things, these companies were able to do it so fast because they felt the demand from COVID. But there's always demand and there's always opportunities for disruption. And that disruption happens internally as well as in the market. And the first step to getting ready to do that is by accepting the fact that there are a lot of assumptions about our business that might be holding us back, that if we changed, we meet the market in a lot of new and interesting ways. So once we've gotten our heads around that, it's time to go out into the world and talk to people, learn about their problems. And I think that one of the biggest mistakes that companies make is that they start by asking people about ideas. They start by talking to people about, what do you think we should offer? What do you think about this product? What do you think about that product? You know, it's all surface level. You see a lot of, I'm a massive proponent for market research, but a lot of the time when you see it, it's like, you know, high level surveys or pick among these things. You know, people don't get to the deep insights, and that's where the value is that you can unlock. And so we really don't want to be at the tip of the iceberg. We want to go deep with people. We want to learn about their emotions, their drivers, the reasons why they make decisions, so that we can then provide value for that, right? You know, a lot of people talk about the fear of tariffs being that as a business, my costs are going up and I'm worried that my customers aren't going to be able to, you know, take on those extra prices. What we don't hear a lot about is companies looking for ways to add increased value to their customers in innovative ways, so that maybe the value proposition of what you're offering is worth the extra charge because you've added other things to it as well. You know, there's a lot of different ways that we can think about innovation, and it doesn't have to just be you know, simple cost up here, cost up there. When we talk about deep insights, I'll give you a great example of a client that we worked with a few years ago. They were in the grocery space, and they produced, they were a salad dressing company, and they were interested in exploring other areas of the business, right? So they wanted to see, we were talking to some people, and we were getting the sense that while we wanted to help people cook more at home, a lot of the times when people were thinking about international recipes of cultures that maybe were very different than what they grew up with, a lot of times they just went to restaurants. You know, they would go out to eat that food. They don't cook it at home because it was intimidating or scary. And we wanted to dive into that because we saw an opportunity there for some grocery meal kits for these international recipes. And so when we're talking to people about that kind of stuff, you can start with, you know, I don't know how to cook that kind of food. We hear from people, oh, there's too many ingredients I've never used before. And if you stop at that surface level, you might say, oh, well, you know, maybe we'll make an app that people can use to have recipes that they can cook at home. Or, you know, oh, well, maybe we'll make it easier for people to find new restaurants or things. But those are all surface level ideas that are probably not going to take on and also have a lot of competition. But when you keep digging deeper, you start to get to people's emotions and their drivers and the things that they care about. And you start to hear, oh, I'm nervous to go into specialty or international stores because I've never been there before and I'm unfamiliar with the ingredients. If I mess up this recipe, it'll be a waste of food. It'll cost me money. It'll cost me time. I don't want to embarrass myself if it doesn't taste right, if I don't do a good job. And ultimately, it doesn't always have to be negatives. You can get to, I want to feel adventurous. I want to connect with other cultures. I want to have my family and friends think that I'm a great cook, right? I mean, these are really profound emotional drivers for why people make decisions the way that they do. At no point in this time are we asking them for ideas, right? We have the solution at the top because this was the result of doing this research, but it took us getting these insights to be able to come up with those ideas. Then it's our job to bring together a cross-functional team of marketers and salespeople and product people and manufacturers and distributors to come up with a great idea that solves against these problems. And so that's our third step. Once we've unlocked these deep insights, we can then go reframe the problem and then ideate. And this is one of the big focuses of when my co-author Tom Kaczmarski and I wrote this book, Risk-Free Innovation, 10 Ways to Manage Uncertainty, a few years ago. We talked about a lot of the ways that companies can reduce risk in innovation and find more success, because that's time and again the thing that we hear the most often is preventing people from wanting to move forward and invest in innovation. And so at the end of the day, ideas fail, but problems don't. And this is really important to remember. The way to eliminate the greatest amount of risk with innovation is to start by understanding customer problems, right? If we can do that, then we know that we are adding value for people. We know that we are presenting something that people want, and we just have to get the package right. We have to just put it in the right framework. Versus if we come up with ideas and then assume we know what the customers want and bring it in front of them, there's so much more risk involved with that because we don't know if we're getting it right. We don't know if the initial insight is actually a need for them, versus this way is a much more concrete and de-risked way to move forward. So once we have our ideas, then we have to move forward and test. We have to get it out there. And in uncertain environments, we just have to go, right? Time is not our friend. We have to meet the moment where it is now. And the way to do that is by testing small and learning quickly. And this allows us to have cheap, earlier failures. Not everything is going to work. And we have to accept that as innovators. We have to say, you know what, we're going to put stuff out there and it might not all be great, but there might be something about what we've developed that is accurate and what people are looking for. And if we can build that out by getting that real world feedback from people, something you can't get in a focus group or in a testing room, get it out in the world, let people try it, and then build the confidence you need to make those bigger bets once you're finding what's working and what's taking hold, right? So this is a really important part for companies to break away from the idea that, oh, we have to rally everybody together. We've got to get the whole marketing team together. We've got to do a big push for this. We got to get a campaign. Just get it out there. They always say, perfect is the enemy of good. And this is the perfect example of that, right? We have to get it out there. We have to try to build and get something going. And so 3 tips I give for this specific thing is, 1, if you're going to test before you launch it, and with these pilots, make sure it's with actual customers and users. Like I said, I love market research, but the sales team and the marketing team and the product team are not the people you want to get insights for when it comes to, do they like it? Are they going to buy it? All those kinds of things. And a lot of companies make the mistake of creating products for themselves, right? When you really have to get insights from the market. So talk to people, get their feedback. And then when you do launch these small pilots, measure everything, set KPIs, set goals, and make sure that you're measuring everything so that whether it's the revenue you're trying to get from something, the cost structure, making sure your profit margins are accurate, the uptake, the purchase frequency, measure everything and set goals so that if things are progressing well. And then lastly, iterate, change, or kill it quickly, but do that based on data. There's so many people that when they put something out there, they always want to feel, they feel this attachment. They're like, innovations are like our children and we want them to succeed. But in truth, we have to be objective about this because time is not our friend. Markets are shifting, markets are changing. We have to get something out there in front of people get their feedback, and then move forward. I love that. Love that, Robert. Get it down on paper, and then we'll see what we can do with it. Exactly. That's exactly right. So the thing that a lot of companies will do is they'll go through this process and they'll feel great and they'll pat themselves on the back and they're really happy about it. But then that's where they stop, and that's the problem. And so we need to really think about committing to reinvention. And that's not just doing this over and over again, but thinking about how we can reinvent the company itself. And so I'll pose this to people out there. You know, when you think about a company that is great at this, that reinvents themselves repeatedly, what comes to mind? I'd love to see you in the chat, throw some examples down of companies that you think of that are constantly reinventing themselves, doing a really good job of it.
Two things. We're planning to walk the dogs early if you want to come, so that we're set for Daniel. And then also I had emailed.
All right. Muting is love. That's right. Thank you, Barb. Perfect. So, all right. Well, I will give you my example, and I think I've got the sound on here. Yeah, Apple, Chick-fil-A, love it. Great examples. My example here that I put down is Netflix. And I know Netflix is a bit cliche when we're in the innovation space, because we always think about, oh, Blockbuster was the brick and mortar and Netflix came in and they disrupted the space. But I think the thing that Netflix doesn't get enough credit for is their commitment to reinvention over and over again. Because, you know, when we think about Netflix and they started, DVD rentals, that was their thing in 1999 when they came out, that disrupted the space. They totally took, they ate Blockbuster's lunch, right? People were getting these subscriptions left and right, but it only took them 8 years to transform the business into streaming. And I don't think we always give them enough credit for going from warehouses of DVDs to a tech platform and media streaming service at a time when this did not exist, right? We forget that, you know, now every channel and every media outlet has their own streaming service. At a time, this was brand new to the space. It was a massive change from them to get from warehouses of DVDs to this tech platform, to then, just a few years later, developing their own production company and creating the content themselves. And that only happened 6 years after that. So think about, from a 14-year span, going from warehouses of DVDs to a tech streaming platform to an entire production studio, all within the same company. And I want you to think about that from the perspective of, can you imagine, for those of us who have been in companies that are, you know, older than 14, 15 years, I know we've got a mix of people from big companies and small companies. Think about where your company was 14 years ago and where you are now, and how different you are, probably not nearly as transformed as what it was back then. But for everyone here, think about the future. Could you really see yourself transforming the business? Or do you feel like, when being presented with opportunities in the marketplace, your initial reaction might be hesitant, or, oh, well, we don't do that, or that's not right for us, or, you know, this might not be the right thing for us to do because we've never done that before? That's the hesitation that we want to try and overcome, because this reinvention commitment is what keeps us agile and able to adapt to different market environments when something happens that we don't expect, or something down the line that we can't foresee. So I'd like folks to think about this tactically within your organization. Have there been opportunities that have come up where maybe you've thought, oh, that's too audacious, or that's too big? There are ways to get there, and there's ways to wrap your heads around it. And this is something that we work with people all the time on. Yep, that's right, Robert. Love it. All right, perfect. So this is the 0-point mindset flywheel. I would encourage everyone to think about ways to infuse these in your processes with your teams. Doesn't even have to be at the full corporate level. I know there's a lot of folks here that are from larger corporations here. This can be on a team level. It can be on a brand level. Really, the focus here is trying to get your heads around the idea that we can disrupt ourselves, we can change. It's something that I've seen in my clients year over year, and I know it works, and it's a great way to feel comfortable with uncomfortability, which is something that not everybody is able to do all the time. So let's transition from this to some of the tactical tools that I talked about. They use a lot of these principles in different ways. but I want to make sure that everyone here has something practical that they can take with them to be able to deal with some of the uncertain situations in the world. So 3 practical innovation tools we'll talk through. Number 1 is the insight-led idea sprint. We got to get something out there. We got to do something now. Here's some of the ways that you can do that in a low-cost environment, right? When we don't have the resources to go do a big market research study or a big launch. Something that we like to call the zombie hunt audit, and we'll get into what that means in just a second. And then lastly, the resource reallocation map. So let's dive into these 3 and ways that we've seen companies take advantage of these ways. So the insight-led idea sprint, the goal here is to find low to zero cost sources of innovation insight. And so the way that we like to think about that is we want to talk to people. There are tons of different ways that we can get that insight. We can talk to industry experts. We can talk to influencers and online forums. We can talk from a perspective of social listening and online reviews. I mean, there's all this insight about what's going on in the world that can get us started on the way to. Oh, I'm seeing some folks. That's okay. We'll send out the recording. Don't worry. So if you have to hop, I will be sending this out to everybody. So thank you so much. So as we're talking about getting insight from people, a great way that a lot of people miss is talking to frontline workers. There was a great interview recently that I believe the Wall Street Journal did with the CEO of Chili's, where for those that aren't familiar, Chili's is a restaurant chain that is doing very well in a space where a lot of quick service restaurants are failing because of things related to inflation and decreases in consumer spending. Chili's is doing phenomenally well. And one of the things that worked for them is the CEO said he went into the kitchens and he talked to the cooks. He looked at the processes of food being made. He talked to waiters, he talked to hosts. And what he was able to do was find ways to reduce the menu and redesign the physical layout of the kitchen so that the food is coming out faster, better quality, and on a tighter menu with better margins. And that alone drove so much efficiency that they were then able to focus on a lot of the other experiential related food items and things that have made the restaurant do so well. But this is a great source of insight. But again, the biggest, most helpful place to go is, of course, direct customer research. There are ways to do it where it's incentivized, but not so expensive. You know, what I've seen doing this for a very long time is people like talking about their problems. They like talking about what's going on in their lives. They like sharing. You only need to offer them a small amount, whether it's a gift card or a free month if you're in a subscription type business model, or a free product sample or something. You give them a little bit and they will give you so much. And again, the most important thing that we want to do is focus on problems, right? Not ideas. Come up with these problems, understand what's going on, quickly get the team together, and then let's put a pilot out there, test and scale. And yes, Will, there are tons of great research tools that I'd be happy to talk about. That might be a future topic for another webinar of all the different ways that we can use tools like AI and experiential tools to get a lot of research insights from people that are quick and cheap, in addition to just going out and talking to people directly. So great question. There's a lot out there that can be done, and that's a good idea for a topic for a future event. All right, let's talk about the next one. This one is one of my personal favorites just because I love the name. It's the zombie hunt audit. And so when we think about zombies, we think about things in our businesses that are slow moving brain drains within the organization that don't really provide a ton of value. I'm not talking about people, so don't get ahead of me. I'm not talking about laying off anybody. I'm not talking about that type of thing. What I want to do is let's take a look at a couple areas within the business with brutal honesty and think about, is there value there? And why are we doing the things that we're doing? And see if there are ways that we can be more efficient or redirect in a way that's going to help us out. So let's talk about it. First of all, what are our strategic goals? Especially within innovation, we need to make sure that we are all moving in the same direction, right? When you go out and you talk to 5 different people about what's our strategy right now, you'll get 5, maybe even 6 different answers about where we want to go, right? So we all have to be on the same page about what do we want to achieve. Then let's look outward and say, what's the value proposition? What are we actually doing for people? What is the problem that we are solving? And what are we doing better than anyone else? And these are the two core pillars of any business, right? Where you want to go and how you help people. So, and I think a lot of companies do this maybe once a year, and I think it's something that we need to think about more often, because we make so many decisions throughout the year on a day-to-day basis that should be impacted and led by these two pillars that maybe we only think about in that big retreat we do at the end of the year. And so I'd encourage people to start here, and then let's look at what we're doing, right? Is everything that we're doing in support of our strategy and our value proposition? And then look at the resources. Is every dollar that we're putting out there strengthening our strategy and our value proposition? Or are there things that we're doing that, maybe are fun, or they're things we've been doing for a long time, or they're interesting, but not really driving value? Let's really take a hard look and say, if we're in a situation where we're being asked to do more with less, if we're being asked to innovate in an uncertain and hectic environment, let's focus up. Let's tighten everything that we're doing right now and make sure it's all going in the right direction, right? And again, this for larger companies, this can be done at the team level. This can be done at the brand level. This can be done at the divisional level. And then for small to mid-sized companies, of course, we can take a look at the entire organization when we're thinking about these types of things. And this zombie hunt audit, when we find those zombies, what we do with them is we put them into our resource reallocation map, right? So we're going to take things that we're spending money on now and reallocate them towards innovation, because anyone in here who's ever tried to ask for budget for a new project knows it is a lot easier to ask for money that's already being spent somewhere and putting it somewhere else than asking for new dollars to put towards a project. So let's think about taking, let's take marketing, for example. How many people here measure the ROI of your marketing based on last year's performance, right? We did better than last year. Oh, well, that's great. But is better than last year the right metric for where we want to be? Are there different ways that we could be talking to people, getting the word out? Are we doing things the most efficient way possible? Do we have legacy software licenses that are providing minimal value? I don't know how many folks out there have a subscription to Rocket Money, but I do. And I was shocked at how many subscriptions I had that I didn't even realize that. And when you think about extrapolating that to the entire business, how many different legacy software licenses and things that we're using that might not be of value. And I just feel like there's no chance that you can go through an audit like that and not find any budget that can be moved into a different direction. And lastly, sponsorships and trade events that are not really driving conversions as well as we'd like. I'm a massive proponent of corporate social responsibility. I think getting involved in your community is fantastic. I think sponsoring organizations is a great thing for companies to do. But a lot of times these events can be, again, on that rinse and repeat, right? We did it last year, let's do it again this year, without really thinking about what was the value that we got from this organization? What was the value that we got from going to this trade event? It was fun, but did we actually drive our business forward? And so these are just a couple examples. You can do this through the entire organization and think about, are we using our resources most effectively? And then let's transition that into a small budget to develop low-cost experiments through new channels, whether that's, from the marketing perspective. We can start to do a couple more customer interviews and frontline immersions to learn some of those insights to lead to that idea sprint, and then develop some of those small-scale prototypes and pilot programs. So these are 3 tools that I think are really helpful. I hope some of them can help you in your businesses. If you'd love to chat in more detail, again, please feel free to book a call or chat with me. We will have some time at the end of this for some question and answer as well. But essentially, what I hope everyone can take away from this is the 0-point mindset is a great way to combat uncertainty. But I hope that people, while the market today is so uncertain and we don't know where things are going to go, we don't need that economic pressure to inspire innovation. This is something that we can do all the time. And if it's something that we can adapt within our mindsets and our teams, I've seen it work time and again for companies that are just able to continuously grow and innovate and deliver more value to their customers. We talked about 3 tools for Scrappy innovation. These are things I've seen work time and again. And if anyone wants to talk about these in more detail, I'm more than happy to. And lastly, I have an exciting a bonus tool I want to share with you all. the innovation risk audit, which is a brand new tool that we're launching at 0 Point Strategy. Essentially, this is to help companies who are freezing up because the risk of innovation becomes too high, right? We don't want you to be betting blind. We want to help you eliminate the risks of failure before you invest. Because I've seen so many times over the years, even just a small change within a new product or a new service, whether it's the way it's packaged, the customer experience, the way it's communicated, can be a make or break for the offering. And so we want to take what we've learned over the years and through publishing this book to be able to come in. We help clients with an innovation strategy assessment. We do a quick risk scan and audit of some of the initiatives that you have in the pipeline right now. And we develop what's called an innovation readiness radar, where we take a look at your product market fit, the commercial viability, the customer experience, the brand fit, the go-to-market plan, and a few other dimensions to be able to say, how ready is this for the market today? And what are some areas where we can level up, right? We can come in and eliminate some of those risks that you're seeing, or maybe there's some areas you hadn't thought of before, and give you some recommended next steps. And the best part about it is it's quick, right? We can do up to 5 initiatives in just 10 days, quick and easy risk audit report to bring into people. So this is one that I'm excited about. If anyone is interested in this, absolutely would love to connect on this, or just in general, anything related to 0 Point Strategy, innovation. I love just building my community of innovators. I know there's a lot of really talented and interesting folks in the event today that I'd love to connect with, and I hope you can connect with one another. But please feel free if you'd like to book a call and stay connected throughout in the near future.